Have you ever noticed how people often value something only when its constant presence disappears? It's an interesting part of human nature. When something is always available, always calling, always texting, always showing up, it slowly becomes expected. And when something becomes expected, it quietly loses the power it once had. Many people believe that the way to keep someone interested is to give more attention, more messages, more effort, more reassurance. They think persistence will bring closeness. But sometimes what actually happens is the opposite. The more someone chases endlessly, the more the mystery fades. The more they try to force connection, the less natural the connection feels. Now consider what happens when a person decides to step back. Not out of anger, not out of pride, but out of self-respect. When you stop contacting her, something unusual begins to occur. The silence creates space. And in that space, emotions that were once buried under constant communication begin to surface. Suddenly, the routine she had grown used to is no longer there. The messages that once appeared every morning and every night are gone. And that absence does something powerful. It causes reflection. Human beings naturally notice change. When a pattern breaks, the mind begins asking questions. Why did things change? What happened? Is something different now? And those questions are important. Because when you stop reaching out constantly, you give the other person a chance to experience what life feels like without your presence filling every moment. If your attention was genuine, if your energy was positive, if your presence added value, then its absence becomes noticeable. But there is an even more important truth hidden in this moment. Stepping back is not only about what she feels, it is also about what you discover about yourself. For many people, constant communication becomes a habit driven by fear. The fear of losing someone, the fear of being forgotten, the fear of silence. Yet the moment a person chooses to pause, they often realize something powerful. Their value was never dependent on constant validation. A person with purpose, growth, and self-respect does not need to chase endlessly to prove their worth. Instead, they focus on building a life that naturally attracts respect and interest. And here is the remarkable part. When someone sees that you are no longer chasing, no longer trying to force attention, but instead investing your time in growth, work, learning, and meaningful living, your energy changes. You become calm instead of desperate, confident instead of uncertain. People feel that difference. Sometimes she may begin to wonder about you more. Sometimes curiosity grows where routine once existed. And sometimes the distance reveals truths that constant communication was hiding. It may show whether the connection was genuine or simply convenient. But the greatest lesson is this: stepping back returns control of your life to you. Instead of spending energy wondering what someone else thinks or feels, you invest that energy in becoming stronger, wiser, and more purposeful. You develop your goals, you strengthen your discipline, you grow into a person whose life is full of direction and meaning. And when a person lives with that kind of focus, something interesting happens. Relationships stop being about chasing approval and start being about mutual respect. So if there comes a moment when you decide to stop contacting her, do not see it as a game. See it as an opportunity for clarity, an opportunity for growth, an opportunity to discover the power of self-respect. Because in the end, the most attractive quality any person can develop is a life filled with purpose, confidence, and quiet strength. And when you build that life, you will never need to chase attention again. The right people will recognize your value, and they will choose to walk beside you, not because you forced it, but because the connection naturally belongs there. There are moments in life when doing less can actually create a greater impact than doing more. In many relationships, people believe that constant communication is the key to maintaining closeness. They feel that sending more messages, checking in more often, and always being available will strengthen the bond they share with someone. At first, this effort may seem like a sign of care and dedication. But over time, something subtle begins to happen. When attention becomes constant and predictable, it can slowly lose the sense of value it once carried. Human nature has a unique way of responding to presence and absence. When something meaningful is always there without pause, people can begin to overlook its importance. It becomes part of the routine rather than something special. This does not necessarily happen because someone is ungrateful. It happens because familiarity often reduces the sense of appreciation. That is why learning when to step back can be a powerful act of awareness rather than a sign of withdrawal. Creating space allows both individuals to see the relationship more clearly. When communication is no longer constant, there is time to reflect, to think, and to understand what the connection truly means. Silence has a way of revealing feelings that noise often hides. It encourages people to evaluate how much they value someone's presence and how much that presence contributed to their daily life. At the same time, stepping back teaches an important lesson about self respect. Instead of constantly seeking attention or reassurance, a person begins to focus on their own growth, goals, and well being. They invest their energy into learning, improving, and building a life that is fulfilling on its own. And when someone develops that kind of inner strength and balance, their presence becomes naturally meaningful, not because they demand attention, but because their value speaks quietly for itself. In many relationships, people often confuse effort with overextension. Effort is healthy, it shows care, interest, and willingness to build something meaningful. But when effort turns into constant pursuit, it can slowly create an imbalance. One person may begin to feel responsible for keeping the connection alive at all times, initiating every conversation, sending every message, and trying to maintain closeness through continuous attention. While this may come from genuine intentions, it can unintentionally remove the natural rhythm that allows both people to participate equally. When someone decides to pause and step back, the dynamic begins to change. The familiar routine of constant communication is no longer there, and this absence naturally draws attention. Human beings are highly aware of patterns in their daily lives. When a pattern shifts, the mind begins to question it. This moment of curiosity can lead to reflection about the value of the connection, about the presence that was once consistent, and about what that presence truly meant. However, the most important transformation often happens within the person who chooses to step back. Instead of focusing their energy entirely on maintaining contact, they gain the opportunity to redirect that energy toward personal development. They may begin investing more time in learning new skills, strengthening their goals, improving their mindset, and building a life that reflects purpose and direction. This shift creates a deeper form of confidence. Rather than relying on constant responses or reassurance from someone else, a person begins to feel secure in their own progress and growth. Over time, this inner stability becomes noticeable to others. People are naturally drawn to individuals who carry themselves with calm confidence and self respect. In this way, stepping back becomes more than a reaction to a situation. It becomes a moment of clarity that encourages personal growth, emotional balance, and a healthier understanding of how meaningful relationships are truly built. In the end, one of the most valuable lessons about relationships and personal growth is understanding the power of balance. True connection is not built through constant pursuit or endless effort from one side. It grows naturally when both people appreciate each other's presence and contribute willingly to the relationship. When someone learns to step back and create space, it allows clarity to emerge. Clarity about feelings, about priorities, and about the true strength of the connection. At the same time, this moment becomes an opportunity for personal transformation. Instead of focusing entirely on another person's attention or response, an individual begins to invest energy into self development, purpose, and meaningful progress. This shift builds confidence that comes from within rather than from external validation. Over time, that inner strength shapes the way a person carries themselves and how others perceive their value. Ultimately, stepping back is not about playing games or creating distance for the sake of pride. It is about recognizing self worth and allowing relationships to grow in a healthy and natural way. When someone chooses growth, discipline, and self respect, they create a life that stands strong on its own foundation. And from that foundation, the right connections become clearer, stronger, and far more meaningful.